I want to thank you, Mrs. Collins, for
Beautiful.
bringing this. So this is just, and what I need to say is this was a very short program in terms of what Mrs. Collins was able to accomplish with the students during the summer, during this summer initiative. So only imagine, if you will, what our children will be able to do once they've had the full exposure to the program and are able to put on full-fledged performances. So we're definitely on the right track.
Absolutely. I would like to say that first and foremost, my daughter goes to this program. So I've had firsthand experience with the impact that this program has had, not just on my daughter, but in seeing the impact that it had on all the children in this program. And I would say that we need to give this program 200% of what it needs for it to be the success that it's going to be. This program has had such a profound impact on not only students, on parents. When you see the parent participation, when she calls meetings, you will be astounded to know that you were in Mount Vernon. I mean, I would dare to say you're getting close to at least 80% participation of parent engagement, and that's just from my experience of going to the meetings. At least 80%. I've been to about 3 meetings, and at all 3 meetings, I've seen about 80% of parent participation. I mean, the room is packed, and we've been using Mount Vernon High School's little auditorium to host these meetings. At the Summer Bridge program final extravaganza, we packed out the whole auditorium. And when I say the performance almost had a little tear come to the side of my eye, I had to catch myself and say, hold up. You're not going to allow that to happen. But it was so profound, the performance that these children put on, to see that they were capable of doing what they did in such a short amount of time. What you see here, it cannot compare to what actually was put on that particular night. And what you have done, Ms. Collins, in this short amount of time, I applaud you tremendously. And I say this not to put myself on a pedestal, but before I got on this board, I was on a budget committee, and I believe that this city needed a program like this. And I spoke up very adamantly to ensure that this district had a program like this, and it took me about 6 or 7 tries to ensure that some money was put into the budget to start a program like this. And I wasn't on the board then, and then when they hired Dr. Collins went in and sued a grant that this board, that this current project is operating on, with very minimum support from budget at this present time. And I would say that the grants, as we know, don't last forever.
Right.
But if we want to see a program like this in Mount Vernon, and for those of you that have history in Mount Vernon, you understand the impact that the arts has in Mount Vernon. There's so many African Americans, Caucasians that come from Mount Vernon with an arts background. We can go down a list: Art Carney, Felicia Rashad, Denzel Washington, and so on and so on, that is embedded in this community, the arts. And if we do not give our children the best capable opportunity to succeed from a holistic approach, we all understand the importance of academics. I'm not trying to throw that to the side, but we have to reach the whole child. And if the child has that gift, or I would say that anointing, since y'all don't let me go to Bible study tonight, since the child has that anointing to operate in that function, I would say we ought to give it to them. We heard the child say that, the child herself said that every student won't have the opportunity to go to a Juilliard. Every student wouldn't have the opportunity to go to those prestigious performing arts programs, but we can give them that opportunity. And I believe that not only do we have an administration, but I believe we have a director of gifted and talented programs that have the capability of ensuring that we have a top-notch program in this district, and it has already been recognized by the state.
Thank you.
I simply want to applaud you, Dr. Collins, for what you've done at this point, and I implore this board to continue to support this program.
Thank you, trustee.
I just want to add one more thing. For many years living in this community, I've had many tears of frustration. And tonight, I have to say that watching this clip sent tears of joys from my eyes.
Yeah.
And if this is the beginning of something great, I'm all on board. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Right. And I felt the same all I could say is Mount Vernon is back. And, this 2020 vision that we have, I think we will be able to achieve our goals. I would like to have the community, there is hope in the community. There is hope in the schools. You talk to teachers and you talk to, whenever they talk to you, you know that there is hope. They hope that things will come back to the way they were before. And it took us years to get to this. And I do believe that all we need to do is continue at this pace and support the vision that Dr. Hamilton and his team, have, because that vision is going to lead us to the 22nd century. When we are in the 21st century, we're far from it, but still, this will take us a long way. And it will start with, of course, the bond that we are putting forward, and the magnet programs like the arts, the STEMs, and the mentoring programs. Some of us are involved in some great mentoring programs going on in the city that makes a difference in so many lives, the children, Mount Vernon Children's. And these need to be, I believe, continued, supported, and we need to find ways to support financially, continue to support it. We were at the audit session, the audit committee met like 3 weeks ago, and some of the things the auditor said that happened here 10 years ago, or close to 10 years ago, were scary things. When we needed money, we had to go and borrow, like using a credit card. So we had nothing. But now, we could say, like Mr. Keller said, we have a surplus. But we shouldn't say that since we have a surplus, we're just going to be spending, and spending. We have to do it wisely. We have to put safeguards so that future boards will know today, for instance, for this bond that we have coming in, and we hope that it will be approved. The future boards who will be here, we don't know if you're going to be here 3 years from now, 5 years from now, but we'll know. We'll not look back and say, where did this go? So there is hope, and we are focusing more and more on the kids and less on the politics. Mount Vernon is getting more and more united, so hopefully we'll be able to achieve what we want for our children.
Thank you. I also, while I have your attention, and before I move on to the 2020 vision, want to be sure that you pay attention to the flyer before you. I am putting together a holiday event to bring our community together for the holidays. This will be on December 5th, and the only admission is that you bring a canned good or an unwrapped gift, and we will be using this as an opportunity to create resources for families in need for the holiday season. And there will be a special performance and a small reception as well.
And Santa Claus will be there, right?
Santa may appear. Santa may appear. Our 2020 vision, what I'm presenting to you tonight is a culmination of our conversations, previous 2 meetings, and our final recommendation. Very short presentation this evening because some of it is redundant. Last night we had an opportunity to speak with a group of citizens, and we shared parts of this, but I presented to the board tonight with the expectation and anticipation that we have narrowed our focus to a point where we can begin to talk about next steps and moving forward. So our final recommendation is to move forward with 2 full-day pre-K sites at Parker and Traphagen schools. And those would be our early childhood centers, and we already know the benefits of having all of our youngsters exposed to full-day pre-K and getting services in place for them. The educational programs, 3 schools of excellence, one at Thornton, A.B. Davis, and at Mount Vernon High School. Thornton would concentrate on the arts with an emphasis on dance, theater, instrument, voice, and visual arts. The program at A.B. Davis would be another school of excellence that would focus on STEAM, which would be science, technology, engineering, art and music, art and math, with, of course, a general studies program with an emphasis on The sciences, art, math, communication, robotics, and energy systems. Mount Vernon High School would concentrate on, and there would also be an interaction, an IB program, at AB Davis, and another option for IB or International Baccalaureate program at Mount Vernon High School. And the emphasis there would be on career and technology, specifically related to business and marketing, family and consumer sciences, health and technology, and trade studies. We would also expand our TV and TV production program there, and of course, global studies. The alternative high school, so what happens to Mandela? Unbeknownst to me, Mandela staff they've been engaged in a conversation about alternatives there as well. And some of those alternatives would include one of the proposals that I'm putting forward tonight, that we take Mandela offline as a building and create a revenue stream for building lease, but offer those youngsters who are currently eligible for or identified to need an alternative program a sundown option where they could attend school in one of our existing buildings and get job-embedded experiences through the career and technology education program at Mount Vernon High School. So youngsters would have an opportunity to work during the day after acquiring these skills and get their academic studies at night. So that is ultimately what we are recommending for Mandela High School as an alternative. So the phase-in process would look like this. Year one, which would be our 2016-2017 school year, would include Pennington, Graham Fields, Parker Fields, miscellaneous infrastructure necessary for technology, along with electrical and HVAC upgrades, and of course asbestos remediation to the extent necessary. So the first phase of this bond would be about $17.7 million. I'll share with you later on how that would impact the tax rate as these phases are implemented. Phase two, which would be 17-18, would be the creation at that point of our pre-K schools, the full implementation of our K-8 buildings.
Dr. Hamilton, sorry, can you just clarify when you say, do you mean that the pre-K schools would open at the beginning of the 17 year, or that you're saying the construction to do so would take place during that year?
This would actually mean the implementation of these initiatives.
So-
So at this, the schools would be operable in September of that school year. Thornton infrastructure, along with the academic programs necessary there, the Mount Vernon Fields, and the phasing in a part of the general infrastructure there, and the total for this phase would be an additional $31 million. 34 million. On phase three, which would be our 2018-2019 school year, we would expand the work at Mount Vernon High School, putting the academic vision as I described on the previous slides in place, the Mount Vernon Fields, and the general infrastructure and asbestos. You'll see on all of our slides that requires that we do some environmental work in our buildings because of the age of our buildings that would be necessary, and that would be almost $29 million. Phase four, 2019 through 2020, would be where the academic vision for AB Davis would come to fruition. The fields would be done, the infrastructure there, and environmental work there for a tune of $18 million. And lastly, the very last phase would be finalizing the infrastructure necessary to fully implement all the technology across our district and in all of our buildings. So at the total, once this is all done, the breakdown for the bond would be an infrastructure of about $49.5 million. The work on the fields would be about 8.7. The academic vision, as outlined in the previous slides, would be $41 million for a total of $108 million, which is what we are recommending to the board as a final number for the implementation of a bond in order to accomplish the things that we've talked about. And Ken, you have copies. Ken, did you distribute those yet? You have. I know you can't see these numbers, but I wanted to put them up there because this will be available on our website for parents and community members to see as well. But Ken, if you could start with the board with those handouts, and you can begin to explain them.
Should we hold questions to the end, or do you want to talk about stuff kind of as we go?
I'd like Ken to go through the numbers here, so and then we can entertain all your questions. So we'll have completed
have
the full
questions.
presentation.
Sure. How about a general question regarding, gotta sneak it in there. There was, many of the buildings were not mentioned. Williams was not mentioned. I don't recall Graham being mentioned, Hamilton, Columbus. Were those under general academic vision and general infrastructure?
Yes, those are listed under the $49.5 million would include all of those miscellaneous projects, and Ken can talk more, Mr. Silver, I'm sorry, can talk more about that.
Thank you.
Graham is one of the schools that's getting specific field work as well as infrastructure work as part of the $49 million.
And the other schools that are not listed specifically, Williams, Hamilton, et
All the
cetera?
others.
All the others.
Everything. Every school has infrastructure work, field work, there's outside work, the parking lots, paving, so on. So we're focusing on the cost of the $108 million bond. If you look at the sheet I gave you, we are estimating that we could borrow at about 3%. We're hoping it's going to be a little bit less, but we believe this is a conservative number. So you see, it shows the spending for each year, and in the red below, it shows where the bond first takes place, where the borrowing first takes place, and where the payback starts. So you can see in the 16-17 year, if you go all the way to the right, and the right column is what we're going to look at. In the 16-17 year, you see that there is no cost from the bond. The work is just starting. We haven't borrowed any money yet except for incidental costs, and there's really nothing there. In the 17-18 year, we're going to be spending about $5.86 per month per house with an assessed value of $10,000. Now, there's been a number of questions about assessed value and the value of a house. So I thought I'd take a minute to actually see how we convert the assessed value to what the house is worth. There is something called an equalization rate, a state equalization rate that we are given by the state. If you take the assessed value of your house and you divide it by the equalization rate, you then get what your house could allegedly sell for. So if you took this $10,000 and divided it by the state equalization rate of 3.2%, you would get approximately what that house is worth. And for the average house, that computation comes to about $312,000. That's what the average house in Mount Vernon would sell for today. So if your house is worth $500,000, you do the same, you could actually multiply it by the 3.2%, and that would give you approximately what your assessed value would be for school taxes. Just school taxes we're talking about here. So going back to this, in the second year, there would be a $5.86 monthly increase in taxes for school taxes. And then you could see as it moves along, it goes to $8, $8.75, $12.98. You could look at it any way you want. You could look at it monthly, yearly. We chose to show it yearly in the next to last column, and then monthly in the last column to see what the impact would be. And then those numbers fluctuate slightly as the years go by. This spending is based on the estimates from the construction management firm, and this is the way they see the spending in the first over 5 years. This could change and probably will change, but this is what we estimate will be the impact of the bond and the way all the debt will be. Now, we do know that we currently have $84 million in debt today, and that debt goes down about $5 million a year if we did nothing. And so that's a part of what keeps these taxes down, is that our current debt goes down each year by $5 or $6 million. Now, interestingly, we have a maximum borrowing limit of $202 million. We owe $84 million right now. So if we add on this $108 million, we will be just under the cap of $202 million. But right away, in year one, we lose $6 million from our current debt. Year two, we use another $6 million. So we want to emphasize that, because if we used up all of our borrowing authority of $202 million and then something happened, we couldn't borrow any more money. So we want to stay under that limit of $202 million, and that number changes every year, but today it's $202 million. The number for the assessment of $10,000 was just checked with the assessor's office yesterday. So we are confident that that number is accurate.
That includes all borrowing, so if we were at our max, we couldn't take a tan on our taxes or anything like that?
That's correct. It includes all borrowing.
Same. Other questions? Thank you, Ken. Stay there, Mr. Silver.
No questions from,
No.
questions from the public?
No, I'm sorry, no question from the public?
But this is a question that the taxpayers should know.
Can you put it in writing, please, and send it to us?
Or can you talk to him after?
Or we can talk afterward.
In New York City, they want to.
He's gonna talk anyway.
The bond being floated within the community. The question winds up being, will this bond that you're going after be where the taxpayers here can wind up investing into the the school district of Mount Vernon? That shouldn't have to be in writing. It should be a question that could be answered.
Questions from the board?
That particular question was answered, that I had. I had other questions that were related to the proposal. My question is, and you may or may not be able to answer that right now, my concern with the programming is adequate staffing and qualified staffing, because we can put the best programs in place, but how are we going to ensure the quality of teaching, of oversight as it relates to programming, academic programming that we're looking to bring into the program?
We certainly have to be mindful of whether we move forward with this bond or not. We have to position ourselves in a place that we are always recruiting and retaining the best and the brightest. And I think we have implemented a process and protocol in our hiring procedures to ensure that that happens. So bond notwithstanding, we have that as a primary focus for our hiring process. Moving forward, what does that mean for the budget, however? We're in the process of looking at all of that, which is aside from that. But once we get direction from the board in terms of moving forward, we will then look at what are the staffing implications, who are the people on our staff that we have to retrain, who may need to acquire additional certification, looking at partnerships with colleges that may be able to come on site and provide that training for our staff. Our goal is to certainly build within the staff that we have so that we don't have to go out and recruit a bunch of new people. And I don't think we will need to, quite frankly, with some exceptions. We do need folks who are specialized in science and math in our middle schools, for example, and certainly in our high schools. There is a very specific skill set that people need to have. We also need to make sure that for those who will be working in our early childhood centers, that they are also empowered with certain pedagogical skills that will make our youngsters as bright and ready for kindergarten as possible. So there are some other steps to this that we will have to follow, but we need to get some direction from the board in order to do that, so that we can move forward.
My second half, and then everybody else can ask the question, was have we looked at the cost implications to implementing these programs?
We are in the process of doing that for pre-K in particular, and we're almost finished with that. But once we know that this is the vision that the board will support, then we can go to the next level.
I had a question about implementation. I mean, obviously, you've laid out the phase, which is very helpful. I mean, we obviously we have to phase this in. Something like this isn't going to happen in the course of 1 year or even 3 years. But when you see, I mean, if I were a parent of a kid in one of these schools, year by year, my concern is, have you started the analysis of how redistricting would actually work? Because if you have, the certain, I see you have all the K-8 plan to be implemented starting the same year, which logistically might have, it might be the only way you can do it, really, to avoid redistricting every single year. So I just want to make sure that for the community, that people aren't afraid that their kids are going to be redistricted 3 years in a row if we implement this.
There are some youngsters who will be impacted more than once, and that will certainly be the Parker and the Trapphagen students. They could conceivably be impacted more than once because of that. Our goal is to make certain that we just deal with our growing pains all at once and move forward. People will be uncomfortable without redistricting. My experience with redistricting has been it's best to just deal with it once, minimize the impact, and move forward.
Yeah.
And so that's what our goal is.
How does this impact the status of receivership at Davis?
Very good point. Moving forward with reconfiguring A.B. Davis and making it a school of excellence essentially takes it off the list because the school is then reconfigured,
Right.
and its current status would no longer apply.
Okay, great. And this, so, with this plan for Davis, this will start before the end of the receivership, so that
It would.
2018, 17?
A.B. Davis is on 3 years. That is correct.
Right, okay, great.
But we'll be off the list by then anyway.
By then, okay, good.
Sorry, I had just kind of a specific question about the full-day pre-K centers.
Yes.
Are we going to, obviously, there's a lot of work inside the buildings that need to be done to kind of make that work physically, but outside the buildings, I mean, do we have to add parking space? I'm just thinking about Traphagen, like, it's not easy to get to, and if we're gonna have 3 times as many parents taking, I mean, I just don't know.
In terms of the work, is actually not as much as you think. It
Okay.
really is about toilet rooms that we have to figure out, which the architects have so far said could be accomplished over a summer. So that is very, very encouraging. There are plans in place for Parker School to restructure that facility so that there's traffic pattern, a traffic flow there which would be minimize the impact. And there will also be a reconfiguration of traffic